Good evening. So we need to finish today. Apply meditation immediately at every opportunity. Right? Apply meditation at every opportunity. Seize every opportunity, every minute for your practice. That means sometimes when we are successful, we are prosperous, we are happy, then we forget Dharma. Right? So on those successful, happy, good occasions also don't forget Dharma. Because the sufferings and problems and bad news are going to come very soon. And then on other occasions when you are discouraged, unhappy, sad, broken relationship, failure in business, so many problems you encounter, on those occasions also don't forget this practice. With the realization that things will change. Today, bad news, tomorrow, good news. So when you get good news, don't get too excited because bad news is waiting. When you get bad news, don't get too discouraged because good news is waiting. You see, things can change. It's primarily up to you how much happiness you are able to get. It's not so much about what is happening outside, but it's primarily dependent upon how you perceive those things. The same situation, same event could be source of happiness for some, but could be source of suffering for others. Clearly showing that this is very much related to your mental outlook. So that is the meaning of saying that your happiness and your suffering is in your hand. That's the meaning. And if you don't realize this, don't know this, if you simply search peace and happiness in all the different directions, I'm not so happy here in India, I'll go to America. Stay for some time, America is not so good, go to Europe. Europe is also not so good, go to Japan. You keep on changing places. Grass is greener on the other side. But when you reach there, look back, oh, what happened? It's actually greener on the side where I was staying earlier. You see, it's like that. So it's dependent upon your mind. So therefore, in all situations, apply meditation immediately at every situation, every opportunity. Right? Sometimes you stay in big cities, sometimes you stay in small villages, sometimes you go with nice people, sometimes you go with bad people. Whatever be the situation, your mental perspective should be such that you don't forget these realities, these mind training practices. It is not that today you seem to be believing in Buddha, his teaching, tomorrow you hear something, then you forget. Not like that. So that faith must be developed based on knowledge. If the faith has no basis on reason and logic, then that will normally become blind faith. And that very often leads to fanaticism, fundamentalism. Right? So it must be based on reason and knowledge, common sense. Okay? So that also is saying that when you are successful, happy, don't become arrogant, don't become proud. And when you suffer, when things are not going well, don't get too discouraged. Because these are the two situations, too much up, too much down. When you get too excited, you get inflated like a balloon. You know what happens with a balloon? If you put too much air, what happens? It'll burst. See? So getting too arrogant is not good. If you get too discouraged, like the balloon, if you take all the air out, then what happens? You'll get completely deflated. Right? So don't get completely inflated, don't get completely deflated. So make sure that those changing situations should not become an obstruction to your practice. Whether it's a physical suffering or mental suffering, you should be able to accept those, endure those patiently and with understanding. Next, the supreme method is accompanied by 4 practices. So the special method, special practice that you need to do in order to transform misfortune into the path is 2 practices. The first practice is 4 practices. Okay? the supreme method is accompanied by the 4 practices. What are the 4 practices? The first practice is the practice of accumulating merit. You may want to do something good, you may want to achieve success in your practice, but if you don't have enough store of merit, you will not be successful. Because there are occasions when there are people who always are looking for a job, looking for something, but never get it. Whereas there are others who, like, as soon as they finish school, immediately they get a job. Not only they get a job, but very good job, you see. How can you explain that? In many cases, it may be dependent on situations, but in many cases it's also dependent upon what is your store of merit. We usually call it lucky fellow, you know. There's nothing called luck that is inherent, but it's very much dependent upon how much merit you have collected in the past lives and in these lives. And there are people who never get sick throughout their whole life. In the library itself, we have a Guruji, who is now 80-something, never got sick throughout his life. Not even a cough, you see. So there are people like that. And now he is very beneficial to many people, performing people who are sick, they come to him to do ritual, you know. It's just ordinary monk, he is not proud, not arrogant, not elaborate, you see, like that. So we have him here in the library also. So there are cases like that. They did not get that health by doing exercises, jogging and all that, no. That may be important, but you see there are other cases also. Second is purifying negative deeds. Negative deeds are like pollution, For example, if your mind gets polluted, then your mind becomes unclear. So similarly, when you commit these negative deeds, it's a kind of pollution, right? There are cases, very interesting stories. Like there are places, like for example, why people visit Bodh Gaya or other holy places. When they reach there, the place may not be so much modernized, but when they reach there, they feel the vibration, they feel something. This is because this is a place where enlightened being like Buddha, who has collected so much merit, had enlightened, you see. We can call it charged place, you see. In modern language, charged place. So you can feel the vibration. Similarly, there are other places. You know, when I was traveling with His Holiness, in certain places, His Holiness said, it's very funny, you know, here in this place, right in the morning when I try to do my usual meditation practice, it's not coming well. Mind is not very clear. And then we read the past history, we learn that this is a place where so much killing and murder has been done in the past. The same place, I don't want to name the place, but there are places like that. It's not only His Holiness, there was another Lama who visited that place, he had the same experience. So that is dependent upon how much merit you have collected or how much negative deeds you have done. Okay? For example, in our own case, you can think it for yourself. When you do something wrong, what is your mind? When you do something good, what is the state of your mind? You feel so happy. Physically, you feel light. Mentally, you feel pure and happy. When you do something wrong, even if it is not known by other people, you know, you feel something, you know, something bad. And your mind doesn't function then. Okay? So therefore, the second thing is it is important to purify the negative deeds. Third is making offerings to evil spirits. That means this is one of the mind training practice where we have discussed earlier that see all sentient beings as very kind to you. We already discussed this. So which includes the harmful spirits. There may be spirits who are harming you. So for them also, if you make some offering, usually Tibetans, they make some offering of, you know, smell or food, things like that. You may not be able to see them, but there are spirits who are hungry and looking around, you see, and they will be able to enjoy it. So that way they will stop interfering or disturbing others. That's also possible. Okay. Then fourth is making offerings to Dharma protectors. Just as there are negative evil spirits, similarly there are positive spirits like Dharma protectors. There are many Dharma protectors who have taken a vow to help those who engage in good, virtuous practices. They are there, we may not be able to see them. But if you do good, you don't have to even ask for them to help you. It's their duty, they have taken a commitment, they'll help you. Okay, the good Dharma protectors, not the controversial, like Shukdin spirit, which His Holiness is advising against its practice. His Holiness is advising against its practice because it's a malevolent force born out of wrong prayers, right? And now the people who practice that also, they say, oh, if you make this offering, that offering to that spirit, then it will help you, you will become rich. They're saying all these worldly, mundane things, right? If you don't do that, this spirit will harm you, which is not a good sign. If it's a Dharma protector if you bribe, is helping you, don't give the bribe, not helping you, then you can see it's like an ordinary person, you see. Then also, like those who follow it, they pay so much attention to the spirit that as if this is even bigger than the Buddha. He will do everything for you. So that is wrong. That is against the spirit of the actual spirit of the Buddha's teaching. Because the Buddha's teaching says oneself is responsible for everything. Yes, you can seek the support of Buddha, you can seek the support of some Dharma protectors, but at the end of the day, there's a limit that they can do. It is primarily dependent upon how you have lived your life, what kind of practice you have done. Right? So therefore, if you pay too much attention, not only to the controversial spirit, but even to other so-called holy spirits, if you think that they will do all the job for you, your job is only to go around the temple and pray for that, then everything will be done. That's absolutely wrong. It's absolutely wrong because according to Buddhism, we don't believe in a creator God who created everything, who does everything. We don't believe in that. We believe in self-responsibility. If the world has to change, we have to do it. If you want to physically be healthy or mentally healthy, you have to do the good things, you see. So this is not like casting any aspersion against any religion, but I'm simply talking about what Buddhism is about, right? Because we are professing that we follow Buddhism, so we should understand that, right? So that is important. So seeking the help and protection of the Dharma protectors. Then how can you, the fourth of the seventh point is the integrated practice of a single lifetime. So now you want to do practice. How should I do the practice in one lifetime? Okay? So that's what he's going to explain. In brief, the essence of the instruction is to train in the 5 powers. To train in the 5 powers. So if you ask how can you do your practice in this one lifetime, then he says do these 5 practices. The first practice is called the power of motivation. Power of motivation. Out of the 5 powers, the first is power of motivation, where you should cultivate a motivation that I will do such and such practice until I become a Buddha. Or at least until I die in this life, I will continuously do this practice. You need to make that kind of motivation. Or even if you are not able to do this, at least you should say, this year I'm going to do this practice. This month I'm going to do this practice. This day I'm going to do this practice. So make such kind of motivation every day, every month, every year, every lifetime hopefully, and then many lives to come. So that is called the power of motivation. Okay? And second is called the power of virtuous seed. Power of virtuous seed. That means to cultivate bodhicitta, which you have not cultivated, and the bodhicitta that you have cultivated must be enhanced, promoted. Okay? So with this understanding, you should collect all the virtue seeds that comes from your observance of morality, that comes through your collection of merit, wisdom, and so forth. That is the virtue seed. The third power is called power of refuting the negative deeds, power of eliminating the negative deeds. As we have already discussed earlier, that we have host of negative emotions induced by self-grasping and self-cherishing attitude. So by seeing clearly the faults of these negative emotions, you should make an attempt to renounce them, to abolish them. Right? The fourth is called the power of prayer. Power of prayer is also very important because in a way you become what you aspire. In a way you become what you aspire. That prayer means not believing something that you just pray to that and then he will shower upon you all the blessings. Boom, there is enlightenment. No, not like that. Prayer means remembering the meaning of what you are praying. Remembering the meaning of the teachings. Right? Remembering the meaning of the teachings. And in this prayer, what you reflect upon is, you reflect upon all the virtues that you have done within the samsara or beyond the samsara. Especially those virtues that you have done physically, verbally, mentally. And then pray that whatever virtue, positive deeds that have collected physically, verbally, mentally, in the past, today, or in the future, may this all become a cause to cultivate bodhicitta, which I have not cultivated. May this become a cause to further strengthen, enhance, and promote that bodhicitta. So that kind of prayer should be done. So your prayer should not be limited to, may I have a long life, may my family remain united and happy. These are very, very small prayers. Very small prayers. May I pass my exam, very small things like that, you see. So when the exam is about to come, normally then you see a lot of people, bringing a bottle of tea and going to Nation Monastery or to the temple, things like that. That's good, if it makes you good, it's okay. You're not harming anybody, it's good. But that is not the real way of, making the prayer or doing dharma practice, right? Then the fifth power is called power of habituation. Now during the actual process of visualization, as we have already discussed, or even otherwise in all situations, even events, you should repeatedly practice, repeatedly get habituated with these practices. Because if you don't repeatedly do it, it will not stick in your mind. The process of gaining knowledge is threefold. Töba, samba, gomba. Thinking, hearing, thinking, meditation. In modern language it's called received knowledge. Thinking, hearing is received knowledge, which is good, but will not make much impact. The second is samba, it's called critical insight. That you should critically judge and then you get the insight, you develop the conviction. That will take you to take you further, so that you will be able to at least have the conviction in the practice, and occasionally that will force you to do some good practices also. But still it is not embodied with yourself, it is not integrated with your life. So you need to do the third practice, which is called meditation. As I already explained, meditation is not sitting in a corner, closing eye. Meditation means involving your mind and getting habituated with the positive things. Getting habituated, especially with the positive things. Negative emotions, we don't have to get habituated. We are already habituated. We are already advanced meditators in that, okay? So we don't need that. So obviously it is meditation on all those virtuous good practices. And in this context, one very good thing that Chekawa himself has said is that this mind, which is with fault, also has a big quality. And that big quality is that if you teach the mind, it will learn. If you make the mind get habituated, it will get habituated. Okay? Although we have a lot of faults and shortcomings with our mind, but if you make an attempt, it can change. It can get habituated with good ways of life. So it's only a question of repeatedly doing it, all right? Next, the five powers themselves are the great vehicles preserved on the transfer of consciousness. Cultivate these parts of practice. So, just as you have practiced these five powers throughout your life, is a kind of practice throughout your life. Similarly, when you are facing death, when your mind is about to transfer to the next life, so there also you should do these five practices. Okay? For example, the first is the power of virtue seed. So if you, around at the time of the death, if you recall you have done anything bad, then you should try to purify it by relying on the 4 powers, and then purify your mind in such a way so that you will have no regret to die. At the time of the death, you should not have any regret, because you have not done anything bad. You have tried to purify all the negative deeds. There should not be any regret. And I myself met some senior Tibetan, ordinary Tibetan, very interesting stories. There was a guy who was on his deathbed, very senior person, a very good craftsman. Okay, so I went to see him. After 2 days he passed. After 2 days he passed away. So he wanted to give something to the library before he passed away. So his wife just called me. So I said, "What is it?" So I just ran down and met him. So he was already skin, not thin, very thin. And then he wanted to give to me this, sculpture that he had made, that image that he's made. And saying, "I'm so glad you came, Geshe La. This is what I want to offer to the library. I met His Holiness Dalai Lama, I met Karmapa, I am ready to go. I have nothing, to worry about. I have no regret, nothing." His wife was there beside him. Really, really ready. So that's it, you see. You live well, and then at the time of the death, if you have lived well, then death is like changing the cloth. You don't get, fear when you change your cloth, because the death means changing the body. The mind is no death, right? So therefore, there's no need to fear. So therefore, all this needs, a lot of understanding. Otherwise, we get unnecessary fear. We suffer unnecessarily. We fear unnecessarily. So that's why Buddha is saying, don't do all these unnecessary things. Second power that you should practice at the time of the death is power of motivation. As we have explained earlier, the three types of motivation must be cultivated at this time also. Third is power of abandoning the negative deeds. Remember all the negative deeds and try to purify them. Fourth is power of prayer. And pray at the time of the death. When you're about to die, pray that just as I practice bodhicitta, so may I be able to practice this bodhicitta continuously for many lives to come, think like that. And we don't have to wait until we die, this is your regular practice. But if you have been doing this regular practice, then at the time of death it's very easy. But if you are not familiar with this practice, then if somebody comes and tries to teach you when you are about to die, it will not work. It will further disturb the mind, so don't do that. Okay? What is important is at the time of the death, let the person die peacefully. It's not the time to give a long sermon at that time. So what is important is that right from the beginning, you should be familiar with all these practices. So at the time of the death, it comes normally, automatically. Okay? And then the fifth is power of habituation. That means now, since you are about to die, so you should observe the proper physical posture, saying that you should have your head towards north and sleep on the right side of your body, and use this hand to support your right cheek, and then the left, I think this is a ring finger, probably ring finger of the left hand should block the flow of the breath of the right nostril. Sorry. This hand should be like this, and then this should block the right nostril, and then the left hand should be placed on the right thigh, and then from the left nostril you should let the breath go in and come out while doing the giving and receiving practice, giving of loving kindness, receiving of compassion. And in that process, let your mind transfer to the next life. Process of transference of consciousness. Next, fifth point is the measure of having trained the mind. The measure of having trained the mind is, if trained the mind is integrate all the teachings into one thought. That means Buddha has given like so many teachings. Even in the Tibetan tradition, we have 108 volumes of the Buddha's word. So the thought of all these teachings finally boils down to one. What is it? It basically comes to one. That is to destroy the self-grasping. Two enemies, remember? Two enemies, self-cherishing attitude and self-grasping. So the teaching of all the Holy Scriptures, teaching of all the Buddhas, they basically boil down to destroying the self-grasping, the main enemy. There's the meaning. Integrate all the teachings into one thought. Primary importance should be given to the two witnesses. Now, two witnesses. Okay? As a result of your mind training, practice of the mind training, or your Dharma practice, if you are able to have people saying that since Geshe started practicing the mind training, we can see him that he is a little bit more nicer, a little bit more tamed. That's one witness from outside. That's also good because people are able to see that you are changing, you are transforming. That is also good. That is one witness. So that is also reliable and that's good. But that is not the main. The main thing is whether other people say anything good to you or not, whether other people are watching you or not, witnessing you or not, but you should, wherever you are, live in such a way that you feel happy. Yes, I didn't do anything. I did not practice any duplicity, saying one thing, doing another thing, saying something nice in front of people, doing something behind, hypocrisy. I didn't do this. If you are able to be satisfied with this personal witness and your conscience can rest in peace, then that is the main witness. So there's the meaning. Primary importance should be given to the two witnesses. So out of the two witnesses, the primary one is the self, oneself witnessing what one is doing. Constantly cultivate only a peaceful mind. As I've already explained to you, that whatever may come in my life, I will never make my mind unhappy. Constantly cultivate only a peaceful mind. As the result of your meditating on such spiritual practice, like mind training practice, is that whether you are experiencing suffering or you are experiencing some name and fame or misfortunes, whatever is there, you should not give up this practice of giving and receiving, loving other sentient beings, having compassion towards them, and with that you should be satisfied. With that you should be satisfied. As I already explained to you, that happiness is the internal state of mind. If you mind your own business and have trust in what you are doing and be happy with that, then you will be, as we say, one piece, you will be really happy. Okay? So there's the meaning. So make sure that you are not tossed around by changing situations and events. The measure of trained mind is that it has turned away. That means the measure that your mind is turned is that if it continues to practice the preliminary practices, the actual practice of conventional bodhicitta, ultimate bodhicitta, and so forth, and through that if you are able to develop some experience with yourself, and in this way, whatever be the situation, whatever be the factor, whatever be the condition, but you are able to extract the essence of this precious human life by doing these practices continuously, that is a sign that you have turned your mind from ordinary perceptions, ordinary ways of thinking, that you are able to focus on the practice. So that is the measure. The measure of trained mind is that it has turned away from the usual ordinary thinking, from that, and then now it is focusing on the given practice. There are 5 great marks of a trained mind. If your mind is trained, then there are 5 great marks that you can see. So you can see whether you are trained or not. The First great mark is that you are able to see the cultivation of bodhicitta as the essence of all the holy scriptures, and therefore with this understanding in all situations, events, you will continue to practice that bodhicitta. So you are going to become a person with a great mind of bodhicitta. That's the first great mark. The second great thing is that you are great disciplinarian, in the sense that you have conviction in the law of causality, and thereby you refrain from committing even the tiniest wrongdoings. Thus you really follow the discipline. So in that way, you are great in the practice of that discipline. The third great mark is that greatness in terms of being able to undergo hardships. When it comes to eliminating the negative emotions, you have to make some effort, because these negative emotions are not going to go away from you easily. Just by saying go away, it will not go. These negative emotions are very strongly entrenched within yourself. So to uproot these negative emotions, in which we are habituated not in one life but countless lives, okay? It's really almost, for ordinary person, it's really looking like, doing away with one's nature and adopting a second kind of nature, you see. And in fact, one of the modern terms that is being used is make it your second nature. That means compassion may not be there in your nature. You have the potential, but it is not there in your nature. Loving kindness may not be there in your nature. So you need to make effort, okay? Through hearing, thinking and meditation, then gradually it becomes part of your nature, which is then termed as your second nature. Your second nature. So make this effort to get rid of all these afflictive emotions within yourself, and while doing that you have to undergo certain hardships, and if you are able to undergo those hardships, then you are great in terms of removing these negative emotions. You are great in terms of being able to undergo the hardship. So you are great in terms of undergoing the hardship. Then the fourth is called great trainer in virtuous practices. Whether it's your physical conduct, verbal conduct, and so forth, if you continuously engage in the 10 virtuous, practices or positive practices, and continuously never allow yourself separated from these virtuous practices, then you are a great trainer. There's the fourth great mark. The fifth great mark is the greatness in terms of having the needed endowment, achievement. That means you meditate and cultivate bodhicitta with all its branch practices, and you continuously make your mind habituated with this yoga of making your mind habituated with bodhicitta practices. So in this way you are a great yogi. Okay, great yogi. The trained mind retains control even when distracted. Another sign that your mind is trained is that just like riding a bicycle or riding a horse, wild horse. Okay, in the beginning, when you are not so trained, then as and when you get distracted, I have that experience. When I was younger, I tried to ride a bicycle, So in the beginning, as and when you get, distracted a little bit, you fall. But gradually, when you learn it, you just keep on talking, and still the bike is going, Driving car, riding a bicycle, or riding a horse, you see. Once you are trained, even when you are distracted, you are able to do your practice. So if you are able to do this, then this is the sign that you are able to control even when distracted. It looks distracted, but your mind is not actually distracted. The sixth point is the commitment of mind training. Commitment of mind training. So there are many commitments. Now these commitments we need to, of course, practice as much as possible. Always train in the three great points. Always train in the three great points. The first great point is that your mind training should be such that it does not contradict your commitments. Meaning that if you say that, oh, I'm somebody special, undertaking mind training practice, so these small things doesn't matter. Saying that if you ignore some of the practices, saying that if you have mind training practice, you don't need anything else. Saying that if you ignore many of other practices, then that is actually violating your commitment. So that should not be there. The next is, that's the meaning. Don't go against the mind training you promise to observe. Second, don't be reckless in your practice. Reckless in your practice means, if you say that, oh, I'm somebody special who is doing this mind training practice, so therefore it doesn't really matter if I pollute the water or cut the tree, whatever I can do, no, the nagas will not harm me, this spirit, that spirit, none of these spirits will be able to harm me. So in this way you randomly cut the tree, pollute the water and so forth, then that is a reckless practice. That's also against the mind training practice. Third is, don't be partial. Although in your mind training practice you said, may I achieve enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings, but in your actual life, you have this special favor, towards your relatives and friends, and then strong disliking towards, those people who you don't like, your enemies and so forth, and you remain neutral with the third category of sentient beings, then that is partial. So don't be partial. Don't be partial. Transform your attitude but maintain your natural behavior. That means by saying that, oh, I am very special, I am doing, mind training practice, and then for a few days, you change your clothes, you change your behavior, even the style of walking. I've seen this with some people, you see. There are many people who, if they say if they're doing Zen, practice, then all the furniture should be like Japanese. If you're doing a Tibetan practice, then you should, change the color of clothes a little bit, or probably hairstyle a little bit like Ngakpa or whatever, All these funny things you can do. So he is saying that transform your attitude, but maintain your natural behavior. That means you remain as you are. In terms of external outlook, what is important is you change your attitude. If you don't change your attitude, then change the external, costume or cloth. It will also look very funny. Okay? And then people will also gradually lose respect in the teaching, because since this person started practicing, mind training, we don't see any change in his actual thinking. But look, he is wearing all these funny clothes, It doesn't look nice. So don't do that. Transform your attitude, but maintain your natural behavior. In fact, according to the Buddhist practice, you should not show off your realization, even if you have some. That's why, like saying that I have clairvoyance, I have precognition, I know the past life, I know the future life, I can read your mind. Those things are forbidden in Buddhism, even if you're somebody. And first of all, there are not many who can do these things, honestly speaking. But then even if you have that knowledge, you're not supposed to proclaim it. So maintain it. Your knowledge should be like a butter lamp that's burning in the deep side of a pot, where you're able to see a little bit of light, but otherwise it's hidden, you see, like that, right? And then the next one is don't speak of others' incomplete qualities. Incomplete qualities means, now I'm again getting lost because there are so many different versions, but I think basically it means that since you are undertaking this mind training practice, okay, make sure that you don't highlight the shortcomings of others. Incomplete qualities could also mean that if somebody is blind, saying, oh, you the blind, oh, you the one without leg, highlighting their incomplete things. So don't highlight those things. I think that is the meaning. So that basically means whether it's the fault of a human being, fault of non-human being, don't try to highlight the faults of others. So according to the Buddhist teaching, highlight your own fault and highlight the good qualities of others. Contrarily, normally what we do is, we talk about oneself, highlight one's own quality. I did this, I did that, but highlight the bad qualities of others. That's not good. That's not good. There's nobody who has no fault. So don't keep on highlighting the faults of others. This brings disharmony, this brings fight, this brings hatred, this brings disliking. Okay? Talk about good things. Encourage others. Encourage others. Everybody makes a mistake, but don't highlight it. If you want to say it nicely by saying that I know you are a very good person, but you made a mistake, so no problem, you can change it. Say things like that. Okay? Don't say that because somebody made a mistake, oh, I know he does that, I know she does that. She is so bad, he is so bad, you see. So therefore in Buddhism, one very important practice is make a distinction between the wrongdoer and the wrongdoing. Wrongdoing must be criticized, must be discouraged, but the wrongdoer must be given an opportunity to become better. If you do that, then you will be able to improve the quality of the people. But if you don't make that distinction, because somebody made a mistake, immediately if you treat him as the black sheep of the society and ostracize that person, now how can you improve the society? And we are very clever. When oneself does a mistake, then we make the distinction. Oh, sorry, I did this mistake, I committed this mistake. Clearly saying that I am a good person, I made the mistake. Forgive me, you see. When it's done by other people, you don't make that distinction. So make a distinction. Make a distinction. Don't speak others' incomplete qualities. So whatever be the qualities. Don't concern yourself with others' business. Mind your business. That hardly needs any explanation, right? So that basically means don't concern yourself with others' business means if you had a disagreement, fight with somebody, then if you say that because I have been doing the mind training practice, so therefore I was just able to tolerate it. But otherwise, that person, horrible, you see. You see, you are highlighting yourself and at the same time minding other people's business. So don't do that. Don't do that, okay? That's the meaning. Train to counter whichever disturbing emotions is great. Especially in the beginning, it is impossible for us to deal with all the negative emotions. We have so many. So first of all, see which of these negative emotions has a predominant presence within yourself. If you have more anger, deal with that. Reduce it a little bit because it is going to harm you very strongly. If you have more excessive attachment, try to reduce that a little bit. That's the meaning. Train to counter whichever disturbing emotion is greatest. Clear? Give up every hope of reward. Give up every hope of reward. That means, if you expect by doing this mind training practice, I'm sure I will get a lot of wealth in this life and a lot of wealth in the future life. In other words, if you think about all the excellent things that you think of in the samsara and expect those things to be obtained because of mind training practice, then you're expecting something wrong after doing the mind training practice. So you don't have to expect anything. Just do your practice. The result will come automatically. Even if you practice giving, don't expect, I'm giving this, please give me something, or expect something. That is mistake. Just as you give yourself, good things to yourself all the time, you don't expect anything. So similarly, give others, help others, don't expect anything. If you expect, then if you don't get, you get problem. I've been doing all this to this person, look at this fellow, ungrateful, he didn't do anything to me, you see. That's the problem. And that also shows you don't actually have love towards these sentient beings. If you have genuinely love, for example, the parents, how much they do for their kids. Do they do that expecting something? Normally not so much, you see. Even if it is ordinary way of living, but if the children are able to achieve success, if they are able to flourish, they are happy. I don't need anything. Because they have love. So the love that we are talking about is much more refined than the ordinary love. So therefore we should not expect any reward. Now you're not expecting any reward, doesn't mean there will be no reward. If you plant the seed, even if you say, oh tree, don't grow, it will grow. Right? You plant the seed and then say, don't grow, it will grow. If you plant the seed and put all the needed facilitating factors, it will grow. Right? Give up every hope of reward. Avoid poisonous food. Avoid poisonous food means, just as ordinarily, if you take good food, it will improve your physical health. But if that food is mixed with poison, it will kill you. So similarly, in general, like hearing, thinking, meditation about positive virtuous practices, it's really, really important. But if it is polluted by 8 worldly concerns, then meaning that if your concern is to get famous, if your concern is that others praise you and things like that, then it's like taking poisonous food. Then it will not become a cause to become enlightened, right? Avoid poisonous food. Don't maintain misplaced loyalty. Misplaced loyalty. Now this translation also I'm not so sure. I myself, the Tibetan, also not so sure. But it basically saying that if somebody has done something minor to you, if you keep it in your mind and then continuously, continuously think about it, that at such and such particular time this person did this bad thing, negative thing to me, okay, then that is misplaced loyalty. So the translation, I'm not so happy with this one. So that means, basically it means not nurturing the good way of doing things. Not nurturing, not cultivating the good way of doing things. The good way of doing things is, even if somebody has harmed you, did something wrong, just forget it. Okay? But if you remember it, that somebody has done something wrong to me continuously, then you are not nurturing, not cultivating the good ways of life. So that's the meaning. So never do that. Don't make sarcastic remarks. Sarcastic remark means saying something that really hurts other people. Tamla nongar meja meaning tumburtup sejor pekenal. The words does not have sharpness like a blade, but it can chop other people's heart into pieces. The words, the speech that we use is not sharp like a blade, but it can chop other people's heart into pieces. It's a Tibetan saying. There's an English saying which says, a tongue which is like 7 or 6 inches tall, 6 inches long, can fell a person 7 feet tall. That means you can hurt that person just by using that harsh speech. Therefore, your speech should be, if possible, like honey, or it should be like flower. It should not be like the filth, Then next is, don't lie in ambush. Don't lie in ambush means don't victimize other people. Like sometimes there are people who are very opportunistic. They look for the weakness of other people. As soon as they discover weakness, they catch it. See, this is what you're doing, you see. So that's ambushing, waiting, lying in ambush, As and when you see the weakness, you jump. This is how people, in old days, the aristocrats, they learn these things. How to control people, how to bully people. They see their weakness and then highlight that, and that the person gets like low. So don't ambush. Don't ambush. Because people, when they have done something, when they are shortage of something, then they normally feel like incomplete. Now if you seize this opportunity, seize this moment to further, discourage and bully that person, it's a big sin. It's a big sin. Okay? Don't lie in ambush. Don't strike at the vital point. Exactly same. Don't strike at the vital point. That means, again, like digging the faults of other people. So don't do that. Next is, Don't burden an ox with the load of a zo. That means the zo is supposed to be very strong. So the load that the zo can carry cannot be carried by an ox. So similarly, if you have a little bit bigger power, then if you let others do those things which they are not capable of doing, that's again a big mistake, big sin. Because let others do only those things which they can do. Otherwise, these people will, you just give the order, do this, that person will be suffering much. Okay? So don't bully, don't bully, don't exploit. Don't abuse the practice. Don't abuse the practice means in the case of process of propitiating ordinary worldly deities or gods, it is said that if you propitiate them properly, they might help you, support you. But if you wrongly propitiate them, they might even take your life. I already given you the example. So there are some worldly gods, they do that. If you don't appease them, propitiate them properly, they get angry and they can even take your life. So that is called the god becoming devil. God becoming devil. So similarly, don't abuse the practice means, if you forget the purpose of this practice and misuse it, wrongly practice it, then all your hearing, thinking and meditation, instead of becoming a cause for eliminating the self-grasping, it will nourish the self-grasping. It will strengthen the self-grasping. That's why we do see people who call themselves Dharma practitioners. Probably I may be included there, you see, who have a lot of knowledge, bookish knowledge, because they study like 14, 15, 16 years in a monastery. I'm not just talking about Tibetan, whoever, they might have a lot of knowledge, and that knowledge nourishes their ego. That I'm a Geshe, How dare you look at me like this? I'm a Geshe, you see. You don't look at me like this, I'm a Geshe. Huh? Really, they get puffed up. Like just as people with a lot of wealth, they get puffed up, so people with a lot of knowledge, it may be dry intellectual knowledge, but still they get puffed up. So that nourishes the self-grasping. Right? So that is called the god becoming the devil or abusing the practice. Don't sprint to win the race. Don't sprint to win the race. This is another thing that ordinary people do. But like say 3-4 of us are doing something together. Okay? And then suddenly, at the end of the day, somebody says, okay, you people have been doing this so nicely. Now, who did this? It's done so nicely. I'm going to give a, prize or something. Then immediately you sprint. Say, I did it. You see? When there is a name to be obtained, fame to be obtained, prize to be obtained, then you run first saying, it's me who did it. Don't do that. If there is a mistake that 3-4 of you have done, and then somebody says, who did this one? Everybody says, no, not me, no. This one, he did it, So don't do that. Don't do that. So there are some great practitioners who would always say, when such things come, they say, oh, it may be me, probably me. They accept all the blame upon themselves. You see. So don't sprint, there's the meaning. Don't turn God into devil, I already explained. Don't abuse the practice, more or less same. Don't seek others' misery as a means to happiness. See? It's very clear, you don't need any explanation. Like sometimes if there is a fire in the house, those people whose house is on fire, they are suffering, but there are others burglars who come and seize that opportunity and steal their wealth and everything. It happened in Nepal, it happened in India, many places when there was an earthquake and many people are suffering, but there are others who come to ransack everything, to loot everything. So if you have a little bit of ethical discipline, little bit of discipline, it will be much better. I witnessed this severe earthquake, in Japan also, tsunami. At that time, I was really moved. Still these people were coming in line, They're not rushing and stealing like that. But in many places they do it. So don't seek others' misery as a means to happiness. If somebody is suffering, you will say, oh, you are suffering, come, I'll help you. And then they take advantage of that person and get the money for themselves or whatever. Many things like that. The 7th mind training practice is called the precepts of mind training. Every yoga should be performed by one. Every yoga should be performed by one. That means whether it is your, taking food, or wearing clothes, or living in a house, you should continuously do this yoga of mind training practice. All errors are to be amended by one means. All errors are amended by one means. Probably, I don't know, I'm not finding the commentary, but probably the same practice. All errors are to be amended by one means. That is the practice of the mind training in general, especially the practice of cultivation of bodhicitta. There are two activities at beginning and end. There are two activities at the beginning and end. That means until you live, you should cultivate this motivation to do the practice, and then at the conclusion, you should rejoice what you have done. Whichever occurs, be patient with both. That means whichever occurs, be patient with both. That means whatever befalls on your body, both means on your body and on your mind, be patient. Meaning, be patient, don't lose your patience, and continue to do your practice of transforming misfortune into the path. Whichever occurs, whichever means physical suffering, mental suffering, whatever occurs, be patient. Guard both at the cost of your life. That means, both means, like if you are somebody who has received vow, then there are two kinds of negative deeds. One is called natural sins or natural negative deeds, like killing, which is natural negative deed because it is bad for people with vow and without vow, for everyone. So that is one. Another is, there are vows which if you violate, only those people who have received vows, for them it will be treated as a wrongdoing, but not those people who have not received the vow. Okay? So when you receive vow, there is a plus and also minus. There is advantage and also disadvantage. Disadvantage, if you don't practice, there is a disadvantage. If you practice, there is a bonus. Okay? So guard both the natural negative deeds and the prohibited negative deeds at the cost of your life. Okay, I'm finishing soon, please. Train in 3 difficulties. 3 difficulty means, first of all, when negative emotions arise, you don't remember their counter forces. And in between, it is difficult to stop them. And thirdly, it is difficult to stop their continuity. So train in 3 difficulties. That's the meaning. Seek for the 3 principal causes. Seek for the 3 principal causes. Don't let 3 factors weaken. I am not finding any of them here. Train in the 3 train in the 3 difficulties that I've already explained. Seek for the 3 principal causes. That means when you engage in hearing, thinking, and meditation, you need to have first the precious human life as an internal factor, and then as an external factor, you need to have a very reliable, good spiritual teacher, And thirdly, you need the facilitating factors like food, clothing, and so forth when you do the practice. Okay? So seek for the three principal causes. Don't let three factors weaken you. That means your faith to the Lama should not be lost. Your conscientiousness towards your precepts should not be lost. And your delight in doing the Dharma practice should not be lost. Take some? Nyamba meba namsum gom. Currentless. Value and encompassing and far-reaching practice. Value and encompassing and far-reaching practice. That means when you engage in the practice of bodhicitta, it should not be practiced partially. It should pervade to all sentient beings without partiality. Okay? And it should be wholehearted. That is the meaning. Value and encompassing, far-reaching practice. Encompassing, that encompasses, that pervades to all sentient beings. Far-reaching, that means deep from your heart. Train consistently to deal with difficult situations. That basically we have explained earlier when we were talking about the process of transforming misfortune into the path. Train consistently to deal with difficult situations. Don't rely on other conditions. That also basically we have discussed earlier. Because your mind training practice should not be dependent on changing situations, events. I've already explained that more or less. Engage in the principal practices right now. That means today, fortunately, we have the external and internal facilitating factors at our disposal and found this precious life. So therefore, instead of devoting all your time and energy for fulfilling the purpose of this life, you should make more attempt to fulfill the purposes for many lives to come. Engage in the principal practices right now. That is the meaning. And in that case also, you should focus more on not just talking about Dharma, but focus more on practice. That's the main practice. Don't apply a wrong understanding. What? Don't apply a wrong understanding. Don't apply a wrong understanding, I think means that sentient beings to whom we should cultivate compassion are those who engage in wrongdoings, who engage in committing negative deeds and so forth. But instead of that, if you see some people engaging in Dharma practice and undergoing some hardship, facing some difficulty, then if you say, Nyingje, that's wrong understanding. That is wrong understanding. Nyingje kholo. Don't be sporadic. Don't be sporadic means for few days you practice mind training, then there is no sign. Practice unflinchingly, clear, practice continuously. Release investigation and analysis. Release investigation and analysis. That means, as we have explained earlier, you should use all the necessary motivations and then use a rough analysis and also a more detailed analysis when you engage in hearing, thinking and meditation. That means you should analyze your motivation properly. And then if you see any wrong motivation, then eliminate them. Okay, if you find what you are doing is good, rejoice. Don't be boastful. Normally when we do a little bit of good things to others, then we highly, boast and talk about it. So don't be boastful. It is something that needs to be done. You've done it, that's good. Don't boast yourself. Okay? As if you have moved a mountain. Don't be boastful. Don't be short-tempered. That means when you are engaging in spiritual practice, dharma practice, if the respect and offering and so forth are not forthcoming, then don't get angry. Don't get short-tempered. Huh? Don't make a short-lived attempt. When you engage in meditation, you have to make continuous effort. It is not a good thing that in the beginning you work very hard and gradually the effort disappears. For first few days you forget to eat food, you are so enthusiastic in dharma practice, and as soon as you start you want to get enlightened, and after 3 days there's no sign. So that should not be the case. Don't be short-tempered. Don't make a short-lived attempt. Don't expect gratitude. Clear? Don't expect gratitude. That means you do something good to other people and then people are not appreciating, nothing is paid back, and then you start saying that it's useless to do these things for these people, I've done so much to these people, they're like ungrateful. So don't say that. Okay? Don't expect gratitude. So this is concluded with a quotation from the Geshe Chekawa, who had an experience of the awakening mind. So he stayed with Sharava for, some say 12 years, some say 14 years, practicing this mind training practice. And at the end of the day, he was so satisfied with this practice. And he says, my manifold my manifold aspirations have given rise to humiliating criticism and suffering. Okay? But having received instructions for taming the misconception of the self, even now I am so trained that even if I have to die now, I have no regret. It's a good sign of a great practitioner. Okay? So we should try our best to be like that. But as I told you already, there are so many versions and so many English translations and also Tibetan commentaries are there. So now you should, since you have taken the time to come for this 5 days, and we have already read in the commitment, don't be sporadic. Don't make short-lived attempt. So it should not be a short-lived attempt. And from henceforth, I'm sure this is not first time you might have received this teaching before. But given my limited knowledge and given the time, I'm not able to explain everything, in detail. But you should seize this opportunity and moment and make a decision that you will continue to practice this as has been advised. So in order to practice, you need to get the right text. And luckily there are so many texts. The library itself published, I think, at least 2 versions of this teaching. One with a commentary by His Holiness, another commentary by Geshe Sonabrinji, and so forth. Then the Tibetan version is available in many places now. Probably Shirik Parka, this book you can buy from Shirik Parka. So read them, ask more questions, do more analysis, more investigation. Then if it is useful, practice it. If it is not useful, it is up to you to not to practice it. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So we don't need to do a formal prayer, but as a kind of dedication, let us dedicate whatever virtue we have earned for the long life of His Holiness the Dalai Lama and all the great teachers and all the great people, good people on this earth. Good people are very, very important. Good teachers are very, very important. Then also pray that all these turmoils and problems and fights and exploitations, that you see all around the world, people are dying unnecessarily, killed unnecessarily, suffering unnecessarily. And His Holiness talks about natural disaster and man-made disaster. Natural disasters are in a way unavoidable. Man-made disasters are actually unnecessary problems. So we unfortunately have all these man-made disasters. So let us pray that at least all these problems in general, especially the man-made disasters, come to an end. And it's not enough simply to pray, but from our own side we should make an attempt not to become a contributor to the man-made disasters. As much as possible, say something good, do something good that will make others happy. And His Holiness always says that in your life, if you are able to make at least 10, 20 people happy in this life, then your journey on this earth is successful. Then your meaning of your life is successful. If you are unable to do that, then whatever achievement you have in many other fields, it's not sure how successful you are. Okay? So at the end of the day, to make a long story short, not to harm others and help others as much as we can. We are not perfect. Sometimes we get angry, sometimes we get upset. All these things were there. But if you make it almost like a national highway, sometimes you get digressed here and there, sidetracked a little bit here, but you come back. That I have to do this mind training practice. I have to be good. If you constantly do it, then you will see as you grow older and experience more of life, you will see, yes, this is necessary. This has helped me. And I know many people, whose, husband died, wife died, and who were like in great harmony. And I know some of them who came to me and said, Geshe, when my husband passed away, I was completely like broken, shattered. The only thing that helped me was His Holiness's teaching, or Buddha's teaching, you see. At the end of the day, as I said, the happiness has to come from within oneself. Meaning, through understanding, not just faith. Okay? So therefore, at least in the Tibetan tradition, there is so much encouragement to study and understand things for yourself, and then relate to yourself by using common sense, by using logic, reason. And then if you think this is really good, practice it. Okay? So, thank you. Thank you very much.